Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. Welcome to the best gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news channel on YouTube. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off talking about Nintendo 3DS emulation on PC with Panda 3DS. And today Panda 3DS announced that they now have scripting support. They say here, scripting support means that you can create all sorts of wonderful mods, hacks, cheats, and more. For example, here is Ocarina of Time in a hard mode, where if you touch a rupee, you die. Next up, we're talking about EA's reboot of Skate, and some gameplay surfaced online today showing off some parkour. This is still very early access, very early stages of development, but at the same time, it's very interesting. I'll drop a link to the tweet in the description below and feel free to check it out. Let me know your thoughts about parkour. Next up, we're quickly talking about Ubuntu, and it appears that Ubuntu 23.10 Mantic Minotaur will be using Linux kernel 6.5. And on top of that, with 23.10, they're saying that the Firefox Snap now has Wayland enabled by default. Wayland is finally making it mainstream. And speaking about Wayland, next up we're talking about Fedora and KDE Plasma 6. So in the Fedora wiki, they say for Fedora Linux, the transition to KDE Plasma 6 will also include dropping support for the X11 session entirely, leaving only Plasma Wayland as the sole offered desktop mode. They do say this though, and it's worth highlighting, this also does not mean that X11 applications will not work in Plasma 6, as we will still support X Wayland for running X11 applications on Plasma Wayland. Next up, we're talking about Proton GE Custom, where GE stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or Glorious Egg Roll. And this one just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, GE Proton 8-15 is the latest release. And if you like Mafia, the definitive edition, well, you might like this update. There's a fix here. They added an update to remove the no longer needed Mafia Definitive Edition launcher workaround. Fix physics install on Mafia DE. Now, in my opinion here, I'd only recommend using Proton GE for a very specific game, something like Mafia. Otherwise, I'd recommend using Valve's version of Proton. And speaking about Valve, next up we're talking about Portal 2. And if you wanted to play Portal 2 in VR, you can. I'll drop a link to the GitHub in the description below. So just only yesterday, version 0.1 of Portal 2 VR dropped. And then we had version 0.1.1 with a few bug fixes. And today we've got version 0.1.5. It's extremely active. In version 0.1.5, they've added support for multi-sample anti-aliasing, and there's a workaround here to make the in-game menu work properly. If you are curious about this one and wanted to see the VR gameplay in action, I'll drop a link to a very helpful YouTube video in the description below. And continuing to speak about Valve here and also talking about mods, next up we're talking about Half-Life 3 Citadel Unleashed, which is a Half-Life 2 mod. They have just released a trailer for this game. It's a continuation of Half-Life 2 Episode 4 Eli. If you are curious about this one, I'll drop a link to the trailer in the description below and feel free to check it out. Next up, we're talking about the upcoming first-person slasher, Ghostrunner 2, which is set to release on October 28th. If you head on over to the Steam page, there is a demo now to try out. I'll drop a link to it in the description below. Next up, we're talking about your right to repair, and according to Android Central, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below, California's Right to Repair Act scored a big win from the state legislature. So at a high level here, and I might be wrong with this understanding, for devices that cost between $50 to $99.99, the electronic companies have to provide access to replacement parts, and also service literature for up to 3 years. And for devices that cost more than $100, that gets bumped up to 7 years. And speaking about right to repair, how about right to make your own handheld? And that's what Pit Stop Tech has done here. I'll drop a link to this YouTube video in the description below. It is a fully modular handheld. I'm not joking here. Apparently you can upgrade the main board, the CPU, the RAM, the storage, and it actually all works. Next up, we're talking about Obliteration, an experimental PS4 emulator written in Rust, and it got a minor update. Now these changes are mainly for the user interface. Right-clicking on a game allows you to open its installation folder. The option to open the system folder is now available under the Files tab. Games are now listed alphabetically by name, and abnormally sized icons are now uniformly sized. For example here, this was before, and this is after, looking a lot more tidy. And speaking about working, next up we're talking about the N64, and this is wild. I'm going to drop a link to this YouTube video in the description below, and I 100% recommend checking it out. It's by James Lambert, and they've got a very interesting way to make N64 games potentially look a whole lot better, or at least make a game look better if you're developing a new N64 game. I mean, check out the detail on these textures. To me, this does not look at all like the N64. It looks a lot better than the N64 ever did. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. I mean, if they had this method back in the day, we probably would have got a lot of different looking N64 games. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.